Okay, well, thank you for everyone joining us here, Health and Wellness Smart Show. This is our second time launching this. This is a new podcast expo conference all in one. We actually created a Health and Wellness channel in the YouTube so we can after we're done with this podcast, we actually upload the videos in a YouTube channel and also in our portal. So you actually have ongoing discussions. All right. So once again, we thank Dr. Francis, Dr. Victoria for taking the time to share their medical professional insights on some of the most critical issues that we deal with in the chronic disease. So let me just go over a couple of things and then we can get started. All right. Well, once again, we host our Health and Wellness Smart Show on every Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. And we also welcome everyone to join us as well. Let me just little bit disclaimer for the Health and Wellness Smart Show. Everything that we talk about is pure educational and basically informational. If you have any specific questions, we definitely that you should consult with your medical professionals and doctors and so forth. All right, so let me just quickly go through what this is all about. We call this Stay Healthy 365 platform. It's really about putting all the pieces together, right? We have seen Tech Talk, we have seen YouTube channel, Conference Expo, all these other platforms that's out there. The challenge has been how to bring all the pieces together. Well, and to make it simple, we have done that. This is where we are fully integrated with the Zoom inside. So after the Zoom meeting is over, we can actually direct everybody to the virtual hall so that you can check out all the latest and greatest companies in the health and wellness. So that's the whole idea about having this platform is having ongoing discussions. There's so many things that we can discuss, but we cannot resolve all the issues in one day or one night or 1 week or 1 year. It's about collective wisdom that we bring together. So this is why we're doing what we do. And the cool thing about this is virtual, is global. So there's no boundaries and there's no barriers. Anyone who has the internet should be able to join us and have a good discussions. Let's move on to our today's topics. How to fight back against chronic diseases in America. Wow, this is what I just put up today from Google. It's quite scary, right? You got 6 in 10. This is probably, I got this data, this is data from CDC, probably last year. I'm not sure this is the latest, but enough information to get everyone's attention. So those are the top 7 chronic disease that we have seen that the CDC have recorded. And it's kind of interesting that all these informations, all these diseases are related to all these areas. High blood pressure and all these other diabetics and so forth, heart disease. And so here are the top 3 questions that I'm open up for open up the floor, and the first one is, you know, how can we address the social determinants of health and create a more equitable healthcare system for chronic disease prevention and management? And let me just open up the floor. Dr. Victoria, Dr. Francis, feel free to share your comments, insights on all these questions.
Well, I'll start out with, my thoughts. The question is that how do we create, the correct healthcare system that will address disease prevention and management? Well, that's an oxymoron. The healthcare system in today's marketplace is a sick care system. So they are not interested in disease prevention. They are interested in the business of medicine. They are interested in the monetary and the procedures and the testing and the surgeries that go along with what they can do to monetize these diagnoses. And chronic disease, unless it involves recurrent visits back and back and back to the doctor's office, there is very little discussion about we will help you cure this disease. They don't talk about prevention. They talk about, oh, now you have the disease. Well, we'll help you follow along, which sounds like management, but it's just following along versus trying to reverse. So you hear very little from our current sickness care system about prevention. You hear very little about management, except I will follow with you. When, and I'll give you an example. Once you're started on a diabetic medication, it is very rare for that patient to actually decrease their medication or come off of their medication in the sick care system. Or they're put on blood pressure medication to manage, quote unquote, their blood pressure, but there is very little except lip service to say you need to exercise, you need to change your diet, or you're going to continue on blood pressure medication. The usual is that that medication keeps going up, or they add a second medication, or they add a third medication. And they're watching you continue to progress with your chronic disease instead of helping you reverse that chronic disease and hopefully get out of or be on the least amount of medication. That is not their focus. So that's really, I think, the better question to ask is how do we change healthcare from a sickness-based system to a preventive wellness-based system? They don't want to change. It doesn't suit their purpose right now.
Yeah. Wow, that's so true, right? Dr. Francis?
Yeah, absolutely, Victoria was on point. It just doesn't make economic sense to the greedy, really, the greedy system, I will say, because if you're trying to prevent a disease or you're trying to reduce the number of people who will need a medication or need a device, you're causing problem for somebody. So that's not really what anybody's thinking. So she's absolutely right. I give you an example. I remember when I started lifestyle and just health and wellness medicine, and about 10, 15 years ago, I went to a conference and this guy was presenting the state of health in America. And he started with obesity. And he said, well, I'll show you a map. And I just have to find this map. I think it's still on CDC website, but it's a dynamic map that showed how we went from 5% of Americans being obese to 15% of Americans being obese to 20% of Americans being obese or overweight to now about 35 to 40% of Americans being obese or overweight. So we were watching this map go from many green spots, depending on the states you are, which is a good thing, to orange every year, like every 5 years, it was just changing. Now it came to about where half of American states were showing red, meaning more than 25% of people living in that area were now obese. And we were like, okay, this will get. Then he gave a prediction. He said, if we don't do anything to stop this trajectory, if we just keep going, obesity and obesity related diseases will be affecting 1 in 5 Americans in 2020. I was like,
Mm.
oh, yeah, we got the data. We're going to do something. It's going to stop. We had the data. We got everything we need, but we did nothing with it to prevent disease. Something was done, though. A lot of drugs went into the pipeline, getting ready to address the many diabetes that are coming, the many obese. No wonder we have so many new medications targeting diabetes, and it's nonstop. Every time you turn around, one is coming out. I don't have anything against science. I don't have anything against innovation, but we can't just focus on producing more and more medications, more and more devices. So what they did with that data, instead of saying, what is going on? Why are we getting sicker and sicker? Why are we getting obese and obese? Look into the environment, look into the food industry, create some policies and things like that that will help people not fall into this trap. No, we use the data to help big firms, to help big device companies produce devices and medications that will meet that demand that is coming. Just kind of knowing that, yes, we will have this amount of individuals be sick down the road. So let's make sure that we are ready for their diseases and sickness, nothing to help them avoid it. So that's where we are.
Yeah, I think you made a very good point. I mean, I think there should be some kind of policy from FDA to set the standard for the sugar contents or sodium, all these other stuff, to make every food and products more healthier instead of all the sugar water.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talk about it. I mean, trust me, I've gone to hundreds and hundreds of seminars, listening to read articles. People know, we know exactly what needs to be done. There's just no willingness. There's no support. There's no appetite for that. And that's the problem. We know it's junk food. We saw it. We saw it come. They preyed on people looking for convenience, preyed on people who looking for quick microwavable foods, and the people wanted it and they got it. Now we're paying the price, but somebody is doing well with their bank account. We're just paying the price as a society, as a community. So it's so much, the food insecurity I was reading the other time is actually worse than it was 10 years ago. A lot more people are falling into that category where they are not affording fresh fruits and vegetable food, able to prep their food. They are eating. They put something in their mouth. They get calories, but that doesn't mean that they are eating to be healthy or stay healthy. They're just eating to, maybe, I don't even know, to be alive or something. And we see the numbers.
Yeah. Hey, we got a guest, Dr. Jeanette. Thanks for joining us. You have any comments, please share with us as well. This is open forum. All right. So the next question is early detection, right? This is kind of interesting. So what are the biggest challenges in early detection for these top 5 chronic diseases, and how we can improve public awareness and access to preventive screenings? Interesting.
Well, I'm going to say that the biggest challenge in early detection is that we do nothing to educate patients. We simply take a blood pressure and then say it's good or it's not good. We don't tell them how they need to maintain a good blood pressure. We say you need to exercise. Well, what does that mean to each individual person? Exercise may mean taking a flight of stairs once a day. That's enough exercise that they get. To somebody else, they're working outdoors and they're constantly lifting, moving. It's a physical manual job. But you know, if you're behind a desk versus a manual job, get some exercise every day. If that meets the requirement to write it in a doctor's note for the insurance company, believe it or not, that qualifies. Well, where's the true advice for that patient? There is no true advice. Or you need to cut your calories. Well, what does that mean? We don't do any testing that tells a patient if they do better and will lose weight if they do more of a high protein diet or more of a high carbohydrate diet or more of an actual keto diet. There are genetics that we can do testing, and it's a cheek swab that will tell you, or gene snips that will tell you, how does your body best want you to eat? Because what Dr. Francis will eat may work great for her, but it may not work for me. Those aren't my genetics. So we don't do enough to actually investigate what will work for each patient. We have the one size fits all, and okay, you know, eat X amount of calories and do exercise. And that's the quote unquote advice that every doctor gives. And there's just no individual kind of advice per person. It needs to be individualized. Doctors are not taught, and that's not an excuse, but it's the best one I have. Doctors are traditionally not taught what is good exercise. How do you lose fat mass and build muscular mass? How do you sculpt a body? How do you use that to drop a blood pressure and decrease a diabetes risk? They're not taught that. And they're not taught what dietary restrictions and how you should do your food. They say you'll have a dietitian to go to, let the dietitian handle it. But the dietitian doesn't have the information about what's best for that individual person either. So we hamstring our experts and our healthcare providers. We don't give them the correct resources to be able to help our patients. So we as the individual docs have to go out and find those resources on our own.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting that we know that prevention works. I mean, you can screen whatever amount you want to screen. Screening is not prevention. Screening is early detection. We have. It's like I have one patient who keeps coming to me saying, my 5 sisters have diabetes. I never want to have diabetes. I say, absolutely. He will come in every 6 months, blood work, bro. I say, no, testing you. One day I'm going to test you. Hello, you're non-diabetic. I want us to do something so that you never become diabetes. Testing and screening, as much as you think is the right thing to do, which in a way it is, it's not prevention. It's a way to know where you are, to know your status. You know, it's like when we started screening for HIV initially, people will run into the office, will say, screen me for HIV, screen me for HIV, I think, and I say, you screen them and say, every 6 months they show up, the same individuals. And one day I asked one of them, I said, why are you so interested in screening for HIV? Is there something you're doing that makes you think that one day you're going to have HIV? He didn't answer me. I said, well, you better think about it, because screening, just because you come in here every 6 months, to screen for HIV will not stop HIV. It just means that one day I'm going to tell you, yes, you got HIV. And he stood there and looked at me and said, you know, you're right. So I sat down with him for 2 hours trying to find out what exactly is happening in his lifestyle that is making him worry that he will one day get HIV. And after we sat down and decided, said, this is what you need to do if you're thinking of preventing diabetes. And we come up with a plan of him really coming up out from wherever he was, you know, exposing himself to risk that makes him come here every so often to check. The same thing to every disease. You cannot screen away you know, breast cancer. You can, which is what is happening right now. Oh yeah, thank God, we're clapping for ourselves. We are doing more mammograms to screen for breast cancer, but we are doing nothing to educate women, to let women know that there is a way to reduce your risk of breast cancer. We're doing nothing to tell people there is something you can do to avoid high cholesterol. It's just really, this is such a difficult place that we found ourselves. Is the only person, the only people that this is working for is the insurance company, the people controlling the healthcare dollars. Those are the only people this is. It's not working for doctors. It's not working for providers. It's not working for patients. It's interesting that Dr. Victoria mentioned that doctors themselves are unhealthy. We have one of the highest suicide numbers among doctors. The gatekeepers for health are not healthy themselves. A lot of doctors are on medication. They are sick because they are so stressed. They are so frustrated. They are not satisfied. They are burned out. We have the highest level of burnout in the healthcare sector. It's not good. So how can you share what you don't have?
Right. And I want to echo what Dr. Francis just said, on mammograms. A mammogram is only going to detect disease or change that is present. You have done nothing to educate that woman about prevention of that breast cancer. So they may say, well, do the BRCA testing. Well, that tells you if you're genetically prone, but it is not a death sentence that you will get a breast cancer or ovarian cancer because you carry BRCA. You have to actually realize that mammograms are, the age of first mammogram has now been lowered to age 40, and we are seeing a higher percentage of women in their 20s getting breast cancer. Why? They're non-BRCA positive. They are negative. What is the cause? Well, the cause is in many cases the increase in the progesterone contraception shot called Depo-Provera. It is IUDs with artificial progesterone placed inside a uterus for up to 5 years, put all of this artificial chemical hormone into a woman, and it interferes with natural body functions. A body is a body of multiple hormonal balances that occur. It is not meant for the artificial chemical to come in and, quote, override. You're going to have trouble if you mix chemical with natural. And unfortunately, there are some chemicals that, yes, we need for blood pressure control or whatever. But in this instance of just breast cancer alone, we cause the problem. And then we go, oh my goodness, now we're seeing it happen earlier. Oh, woe is me. But we do nothing to change the behavior. The shot is still the most common contraceptive on every college campus in this country. Do we tell these women that they're given an increased risk of breast cancer by taking the shot? No, they are not. And all you're going to do then is screen them for disease by a mammogram sooner and go, oh, shucks, you now have abnormal cells or an abnormal change in your mammogram. We need to biopsy, and oh shoot, it's breast cancer. Well, but we can treat that. We've got lots of tools to treat it. Wait a minute, we shouldn't even get there. That conversation shouldn't be happening. So I totally agree with Dr. Francis. We do zero for prevention, zero for educating, zero for empowering our patients. And we need to, as physicians, learn this in medical school, which they're not doing. And we need to therefore turn around and educate and empower our patients, which again, we are not doing. It is not to the benefit of a system to do that. So therefore it doesn't happen.
Yeah. It's really, we're missing a lot of opportunities in prevention, and that's what is very painful. It's very painful because a country, a nation that can send someone to the moon, a nation that can, can resuscitate someone who is literally brain dead. We have so much expertise, so much technology, so much resources. We spend the 100, we spend more than the GDP of Great Britain. So Great Britain, their GDP, their country's GDP, we spend it on health care alone. And we get a result that is worse than Cuba. Cuba is leading us in so many things. They just published the latest maternal infant numbers and, death in it. We're still lagging behind some countries that we can feed. It just makes no sense. And we are spending and spending, and this spending is driving everybody to depression, to anxiety, it's just stressing the whole nation because we are spending, we're not sleeping because we have to work more to pay more taxes, to pay more healthcare. Healthcare cost is the #1 reason for bankruptcy for individuals and families. Why? Why is this happening? Why? Because the system is overwhelmed with sickness. People are so sick. We're spending so much in sickness, and it's beginning to impact our workforce. We're beginning to impact our workforce because people are getting sicker early, so they are dropping off from the productivity age. That age where people should be vibrant and working. A lot of people are getting sick, either physically or mentally. We need to do something. We cannot continue like this. And prescription alone will not do it. We cannot prescribe ourselves to wellness or healthy. So we need to do something more than just writing prescription.
So let me open up I guess the follow-up question would be, what would you suggest that we all need to do for the prevention, I guess?
Well, I'm going to take it to women's health, being an OBGYN, and say in the world of women's health, there is, and this is a very bold statement to make, there is minimal science to women's health. And I'm going to make that statement again. There is minimal health to minimal science to women's health. And that's because if I would ask any patient that would walk into my office, they would tell me they're having heavy periods or migraines or any host of issues that they would walk in with. I would say, when were your hormone levels last checked? And they would look at me. Well, I've never had my hormone levels checked. Well, what controls your cycle? Your female hormones. What happens with your migraine? So they come 2 days before my cycle. Well, that's hormonal. What happens with, and I could go down the line of their symptoms, and nobody is relating their symptoms to where are their female hormone levels. And worse yet, there are really no norms for where female hormone levels should be. So I started doing that research and publishing that research in my 2 books, which these two books are available on Amazon, just so everybody knows. But it's actually taking the work of 20 years of consented research on my own patients and doing and developing the graphs of where female hormone levels should be for age appropriateness, not just the medical way of are you in normal range. That means nothing because you don't want a 14-year-old having the hormone levels of a 47-year-old, or you don't want somebody seeking infertility treatment having instead of 100% or 90% hormone levels, having 20%. And women need to understand if they have abnormal periods, that it could be hormone imbalance, it could be the genetic issue of polycystic ovary, or it could be a chronic estrogen dominance that's causing endometriosis or fibroid growth or adenomyosis or infertility. Nobody tells women where they stand. And by the same token with men, nobody tells men if their testosterone levels are age appropriate. You don't want to be a 35-year-old man with a testosterone level of a 100-year-old man. Yet I would see that time and time and time again. So medicine isn't paying any attention to the science of what goes on in a woman's body or what goes on in a male body. They simply say you're in range, or they say it's not important for me to check those numbers. I have a pill that will take care of this for you, and most people don't want a pill. They want the answer that takes them to the root cause of why. Why do I get a migraine before my period, but my best friend doesn't? Why do I have irregular periods when everybody else in my family is regular? Why am I having trouble getting pregnant when everybody else in my family never had trouble? We don't want to be told, oh, when the time is right, we can do surgery, or when it gets bad enough, I can take you to the operating room, or worse yet, gee, now that you're trying to get pregnant and you're going to be 35 in 2 years, gee, we have infertility specialists that for only $12,000 a month out of pocket, we can help get you pregnant. Well, excuse me, nobody wants that message told to them. Everybody wants to feel that they are as healthy as they can be and that they are in charge of their health care. Well, if you don't know what your body is telling you, you don't know your hormone levels, and if you're age appropriate, how can you ever manage any of these diagnoses? How can you help yourself stay out of the infertility specialist office? You'll bankrupt everything in your checking account in 2 or 3 cycles. And is that the way you want to start your family life? I don't think so. Yet you're told that's your option. I disagree.
Yeah. It is very interesting that to your question, Matt, if we need to talk about prevention, I like the way Dr. Victoria picked up women's health. Each sector, each type of disease has its ways of prevention and what could do. There are certain things most health issues have in common: a healthy diet, a healthy exercise habit or activity habit, a clean environment, including clean water, clean air, a stable mental and social environment where people are able to thrive and live well. There are certain things we can do in the background that will ultimately promote our overall health. But when you're talking about specific preventive measures that we need to take, let's say, for example, for women's health, for diabetes, for high blood pressure, for heart disease and stroke, those may be slightly different in each case. But when what is common to the growing burden of chronic disease is the fact that our lifestyle is very unhealthy. Mostly our inability to have access to healthy food, fresh, healthy, non-toxic food, and our inactivity. Most of us are sedentary. We don't have a good access. Even when you do, you're working so long hours, you're so stressed, you're so disorganized, you're not even able to use the gym membership that you already paid for. So there are things that we can do in general, and then we need to zero down to specific measures that will impact any disease that we're talking about. However, some of these things are not going to happen in the doctor's office or just because we are talking about it. Some of these things require policy changes, and the power to be need to listen. They need to get involved. Whoever is controlling the money, because Dr. Victoria, you and I can sit here and wish the best system in the world, but if we don't control how the healthcare dollar is spent, if you don't control what insurance pays for, don't pay for, the patients are not gonna follow through, even with the recommendations, because the system is just so, it's not meant to keep you healthy. And everything you try to do, you hit the wall every time you try to work with prevention and wellness.
Yeah, so it's amazing. I think you covered a lot of good points here. The last question is kind of interesting. I did pull up some information on that as well. Um, Here's what exciting advancements or areas of research give you hope for the future of managing the top 5 chronic diseases? So, somewhat related, but I think the prevention that you all mentioned is really the number one. Yeah.
Mhm, 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 mhm. Well, there's a lot of innovative tools that helps us know what is going on, where do we need to act, what do we need to change. Like Dr. Victoria mentioned, we have extensive testing. You can analyze hormone, you can analyze somebody's genes to know what food is good for this person. There's so many
Mhm.
things we also need to educate individuals. People have to be active participants. They cannot be passive. It's not it's not effective to say the doctor said. No, we say it's a partnership. The patient, the doctor, it's a partnership. So I say this because sometimes my patients comes into my office and they're having difficulty breathing. And when I was new in this country, I would think that everyone who is having difficulty breathing and diagnosed with asthma or COPD should not be smoking. So I will
Mhm.
be shocked when I ask them, do you still smoke? And they will boldly say, yes. I say, how much do you smoke? They will say something like half a pack or a pack again. And I look at them, they have 3 expensive inhalers on their list. They see a cardiologist for coronary artery disease. They are on Plavix, which is like $750 every month or something like that. And then I will look at these people, I say, wow, and you're still smoking. And I could not understand this because I came from a different environment where
Mhm.
I didn't have access to things. Not to talk of somebody walking into the doctor's office and everybody you're seeing is saying to quit smoking. But I understand that it's an addiction. But we as a medical community have to really drill down on some of these lifestyle habits that is creating a lot of diseases.
Mhm.
COPD, 90% of it or more is caused by smoking. Lung cancer, a
Yep.
session of treatment of lung cancer can cost up to 200, just one session, to $200,000, more sometimes. If you add loss of time and productivity and the side effects and family disruption. But people are still smoking and it's on the market. So I get confused, like, how are we exposing people to these risk factors just because they make money for somebody, and we turn around, we're spending so much to address the diseases. Some people don't know how much it costs to be on oxygen a month. It, for those of us who pay taxes, it costs the taxpayers, if the patient is on Medicaid, it costs us about $600 every month for every single individual you see with oxygen cannula in their nose. And just because you smoke, just because you continue to smoke. So it's really a very complex, we've arrived on a very complex space. You talk about diabetes, look at our food industry, look at the food insecurity, the food deserts, the junk food, the fast food. What do we do? So to your point as to what do, we need to start a conversation first as a society, and then come up with policies that will change things. But the healthcare payment system has to be addressed. Without that, nothing is going to change.
Well, and I totally agree that many times Americans are accused of, we've brought this on ourselves, and we have. We supersize things and we think that's a step forward. We have fast food that, how many times a week do we go out, or do we have that brought to us by a driver? We can't even find the time to make our own food at home. And when we do make our own food at home, we've lost the art of actually cooking healthy meals. We don't know how to do that. Well, if we're not teaching our children how to do this, then where and what are the behaviors that they are learning and taking forward as they become adults? So we have brought this on ourselves, and we have to take a very deep look back inside of our own selves and say, what can I do to change this? The system is not responsible for the decisions that we make, right or wrong. We are responsible for those decisions. So we have to choose to not buy the sugared cereals down the cereal aisle. Avoid that aisle. And we have to make the decisions that we're not going to do 5 trips to fast food this week, or that it's a reward for good grades with your kids to feed them junk food that's going to get them sick down the road. We have an upside down image of what our wealth is doing for us and what we allow that wealth to give us. And we're allowing our wealth in this country to give us disease and dishealth. We are not a healthy nation, as Dr. Francis pointed out, in many respects, but we're doing it to ourselves, and we are telling ourselves our medicine will cure us. We have a medicine for that. Well, wait a minute. We are a body that was finely tuned and not designed to need medication. It's meant to be hormonally balanced and all systems working together. You take a chemical and dump it in, it's like taking a glass of water and dumping in red dye. You can't get that dye to stay in one place. It goes all over the body and it causes everything to turn red. Well, that's what happens in your body also. So we have to take that honest look back and say, I need to make change. I am the one who needs to make the change. My doctor can assist me, but they didn't cause the problem. You caused the problem. And you can say that I didn't know, but really that's a pretty weak excuse, because all of us know that unless if you overeat and you don't move, you will gain weight. We've all seen that consequence on the scale. We've all seen people who have smoked and have come up with chronic lung disease and lung cancer. And yet what do? We just bring different forms of smoking into the environment so that, well, I'm not smoking the way my parents do. It's now a filter, or it's now a vape, or it's now something else, but really it's the same behavior. So why are we self-destructing? We have to answer that question too. We are on a pathway of self-destruction. Are we asking or demanding our healthcare system fix us no matter how many bad behaviors I have? Is that really what we as Americans are asking our healthcare system? Is no matter what I do, fix me. That's your job. Well, that's kind of an unfair question to ask. And it's an unfair expectation.
Yeah. So there is various levels of responsibilities to this issue. There is responsibility on individual level, family level, community level, system level, political level. You know, just this responsibilities that if we genuinely have a discussion, starting from our own personal behaviors, then the family, the children, and just start from there and then begin to look in how is our community doing, what's going on. And then at political level, we start demanding the changes, because once individuals, families, and communities come together and say, we are ready to change things, we are ready to see different things, then you can demand that. You can demand changes from the elected officials. Then they are the ones that are going to help us come up with policies that will change. There has to be serious change if we really want to change something. And then we go from there, but it's at various levels. You can't ignore individual responsibility and wait for the system to do everything for you. At the same time, there are certain things that individuals cannot have access to unless some things are put into place in the system. So it's really it's a partnership at every level.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, so we are closing out with some information update. I actually put that up from LinkedIn. Actually, this is kind of interesting. It says, imagine a world where we put an emphasis on not just reacting to illnesses, but actively preventing it. We went over that. These potential technology could you see in your daily life in 2034? Well, we kind of went over that question, right? So I'm not sure there's any preventing wearable device.
Not even close. It is an illness monitoring wearable device. Certainly not preventing.
Of all this though, of all this medication implant, it's very, very possible, because the big firms will come up with something that we will pay for.
That sounds like oh boy. Yeah.
Pay for.
Medical AI assistant. That's kind of interesting. Virtual.
Well, and a virtual health coach. Really, what that is an ectopic conscience. That's your conscience sitting over here in somebody else who's going to call you out for behaviors that are not the behaviors you should be following. So really, are you willing to say that you don't have enough ability to have your own conscience to stop you from picking something up and overeating or not exercising? You need somebody outside of you to yell at you or remind you?
That's why it doesn't work. That's why it doesn't work, because you can only coach somebody but the AI assistant might help. It might help you with your shopping list, picking out what is healthy, helping you find out which store is more affordable, helping you, helping the doctors.
I think from the educational perspective, right?
Yes,
exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And this is one area. This is one area I actually very much interested. I actually have some information on that as well. but this is, we sort of went over that, and it's kind of interesting. Doctor visits, 62%. Wow, everyone was virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a carryover from COVID when
Yeah.
offices were closed and people needed their healthcare visits, so they were done virtually, and the accommodations were made to allow virtual visits to still be covered by insurance. Well, now that the pandemic has ended and many people adjusted to virtual, they're continuing virtual because it's more convenient. They don't have to use travel time. They don't have to basically lose time at work. They only take that half hour or such for their appointment, and they can continue their workday. But the other downside of virtual doctor visits being that high is that what the federal government decided to do is to say to doctors, well, now that the medical emergency of COVID has ended, you now have to have a license in the states that you are seeing and taking care of patients in. So before I retired, I had a medical practice that went from California to Maine and from, you know, the Canadian coast down to the Gulf of Mexico. So I had all 50 states covered in my practice. That meant that I would have to have gotten a medical license in all other 49 states at the cost of $800 to $1,000 per license per state, taking 2.5 months for that license to be vetted and gone through. And that's on an expedited level. So it would have cost me $50,000 and about 3 months of time in order to maintain my patient practice. That's crazy. Who can do that, right? That's called the federal government stepping in and saying, we want control. We want control over MDs. So it started driving patients to their local physicians, many times physicians that they had absolutely no prior experience with. They really don't know if they have the same philosophy, if they're going to work together well with that doctor, but now they're forced to choose a new doctor simply because their other doctor is no longer available to them. So there's convenience, but the downside to convenience is the government stepped in and put their own separate restrictions on things, and it really changed the landscape of medicine moving forward.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is the interesting AI sort of assistant from Gemini Google. This is kind of interesting.
New Google Medical AI, MedGemini, is surprising doctors. Welcome to Today AI, the hub of cutting-edge technology and artificial intelligence update. Google has unveiled a groundbreaking AI model called MedGemini, specifically designed to assist doctors and healthcare staff. This innovative medical AI tool aims to significantly enhance the accuracy and efficiency of medical diagnostics and consultations, marking a major milestone in the integration of artificial intelligence into the medical field. MedGemini is built upon Google's existing Gemini model and has been fine-tuned and enhanced with capabilities tailored for medical diagnosis and applications. The model incorporates advanced reasoning, multimodal understanding, and extensive context processing, making it uniquely suited to tackle the complex challenges presented by medical data. These innovative features enable MedGemini to effectively process and analyze vast amounts of medical information, resulting in more accurate diagnostic recommendations and aiding healthcare professionals in making well-informed decisions. MedGemini has demonstrated superior performance compared to previous medical AI models in processing and analyzing medical data. Its ability to synthesize extensive information leads to more precise diagnostic recommendations, empowering healthcare professionals to make data-driven decisions. One of the most remarkable features of MedGemini is its innovative self-training method. The model generates new training examples from its outputs, creating a continuous feedback loop that enhances its diagnostic accuracy and adaptability to new medical scenarios. This self-improvement capability reduces the need for frequent retraining, ensuring that MedGemini remains at the forefront of medical AI technology. Real-time knowledge updates. MedGemini seamlessly integrates external information through web searches, a crucial feature in the rapidly evolving medical field. By continuously updating its knowledge base with the latest research and clinical practices, MedGemini maintains its accuracy and relevance over time. This capability ensures that healthcare professionals using the AI model have access to the most.
Well, let me just stop here for a second. I found this quite interesting. I've been following Gemini, which is from Google, a while. They seem to have the best AI for the medical field. So I'd love to get your feedback on this as well. What do you think about this sort of a tool in helping doctors or medical professionals?
Well, I'm going to start out by saying that if you're working in a pharmaceutically based, chronic disease based, cancer based field of medicine, then yes, there's a vast amount of information there that needs to be sorted and made sense of. If you instead want to help your patients never need that level of intervention and knowledge, then preventing them from ever getting there is really the best step, and reserving AI, which is great at handling a mountain of data, but do we really want to take everybody and go that direction? It's like getting in a car and saying, we're going on vacation. Are we going to take that really tortuous road that goes 5 states and 10 state parks, and it's going to take us 2 weeks to do it? Or are we going to go from point A to point B because that's really our destination? And we want to spend all of our time at that destination. In other words, are we going to stay with the patient and emphasize prevention and health, or are we going to emphasize disease and sickness? So AI will be great in sorting that direction. And we have a lot of the information for wellness and prevention. We simply aren't utilizing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great point. Yes. So, Dr. Francis, any comment on this?
No, absolutely no. The AI that will help us do more prevention for sure. As far as treatment and medications and data, remember the data the AI will analyze, will be as good as the quality of the data that was inputted in the first place. And who is putting in this data? What are this data about? We definitely want the data to be about health and wellness and prevention, because that's what will help 90% of us be healthy and stay healthy. Now, there will always be 10% of us who will need intensive data analysis to see what we want. But for the most of us, it's basic. It's basic. We need the AI to help us to make it more accessible and more affordable. So we'll see. Like I said, we cannot sit behind and let the tech experts and the big firms analyze the AI. Doctors have to be on it. We need to know. Otherwise, we will suffer the same catastrophe that we suffered with the electronic health record. I always say this because it's a nightmare, and it's still a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for both of you, Dr. Francis, Dr. Victoria, for this special podcast. We will continue our podcast in the Health and Wellness Smart Show in 2 weeks. And we will basically take these videos. There's a lot of great information here. We will blast it off to a YouTube channel and also social media channels using AI and much, much more. And we're going to be using, we can use the AI chatbot, AI assistant to leveraging some of this information and provide more knowledge-based information, educational-based to everyone. Any closing statement and comments?
Oh,
Well,
this
once
is good.
again, thank you, Dr. Francis, Dr. Victoria. Thanks for joining us here. And
Thank you.
see you
Thank
next.
you. Yes,
All
and
right.
think prevention. Think prevention.
Yes.
Thank you.
All
AI,
right.
AI for prevention. AI for prevention. That's
We'll
what we need.
definitely focus on that. AI prevention. We will talk about AI for prevention next.
All right.
In 2 weeks.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Mm-mm.
Bye-bye.